You think you exist in reality, but Heidegger discovered something terrifying. Right now, as you're watching this video, you believe you're just sitting there, maybe on your couch or at your desk, simply existing. But what if I told you that this basic feeling of existing, this thing we all take for granted, isn't what you think it is at all? Martin Heidegger, one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century, uncovered a truth about human existence so disturbing that it changed philosophy forever. Picture this. It's 1927, and Heidegger is sitting in his small cabin in the Black Forest of Germany. He's been wrestling with a thought that's keeping him up at night. Unlike other philosophers who talked about abstract ideas, Heidegger was obsessed with one burning question. What does it actually mean to exist? Not just to be alive, but to exist at all. What he discovered was so unsettling that he had to create entirely new words just to describe it, because our normal language wasn't enough to capture the horror of what he found. You see, right now you probably think you're just a person in a world full of things. Your phone, your room, your job, your relationships. But Heidegger realized something that will make you question everything. He discovered that we're not just calmly existing in the world like a book sits on a shelf. Instead, we're literally being hurled through existence every single second, with no pause button, no way to step back and catch our breath. He called this thrownness, the fact that we're thrown into existence without our consent, forced to make choices every moment, with no manual, no guidelines, and no way to stop the ride. Think about it. You didn't choose to be born in this time period, in your specific body, with your specific circumstances. You were literally thrown into existence, and now you're forced to deal with it. Every morning when you wake up, you're not just peacefully starting your day, you're being violently thrust back into existence, forced to make decisions about who you are and what you'll do, with the weight of all your past choices and future possibilities crushing down on you. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. Heidegger realized that we're so terrified of this truth that we spend our entire lives running from it. We distract ourselves with endless scrolling, busy work, and small talk. We create routines and habits not because they're meaningful, but because they help us ignore the horrifying reality of our existence. Every time you pick up your phone when you're alone, every time you fill silence with noise, you're actually running from this fundamental truth about your existence. This isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's happening to you right now as you watch this video. You're not just safely observing these ideas from a distance. You're actively experiencing this horrifying truth about existence, whether you want to or not. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. This is just the beginning of Heidegger's disturbing discoveries about what it really means to exist. One freezing morning in 1919, a young Martin Heidegger walked into his university classroom and did something strange. He erased everything written on the chalkboard and wrote just one question: what happens when nothing happens? His students laughed, thinking it was a joke. But by the end of that lecture, several students had left the room in distress. One even wrote in his diary later that day, "I can no longer look at ordinary things the same way." You see, Heidegger had just returned from World War I, where he served as a meteorologist. But it wasn't the war that broke him. It was what he saw in between the moments of chaos. In the quiet moments, watching soldiers go about their daily routines in the face of death, he noticed something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. These men were acting normal while standing at the edge of oblivion. They would drink coffee, tell jokes, and talk about the weather, all while being completely aware that they might not exist tomorrow. This observation led Heidegger to his most terrifying realization. We're not just living our lives, we're performing a desperate act every single day. Think about what you did this morning. You probably followed your usual routine, brushed your teeth, checked your phone, maybe had breakfast. But Heidegger would say you weren't just doing these things. You were using them as a shield, desperately trying to protect yourself from the crushing weight of existence. But here's where it gets personal. Look around your room right now. Really look at it. Those familiar objects, your chair, your desk, your coffee cup, they're not just things. According to Heidegger, they're props in an elaborate performance you're putting on for yourself. A performance designed to make you feel like everything is normal and under control. But it's not. And deep down, in those moments when you wake up at 3 a.m. and feel a strange sense of unfamiliarity with your own life, you know it's not. The stakes here aren't just philosophical, they're intensely personal. Every time you distract yourself with social media, every time you fill your calendar with busy work, every time you avoid being alone with your thoughts, you're not just procrastinating, you're running from a truth about existence that's so profound and disturbing that most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid facing it. Heidegger argued that this isn't just a modern problem. In fact, he believed that the more technologically advanced we become, the more elaborate our distractions get, and the further we run from this fundamental truth. But here's the real horror. Running from it doesn't make it go away. It's always there, waiting in those quiet moments when your phone dies, when you're alone in an elevator, or when you catch your reflection in a window and for a split second don't recognize yourself. This is just the surface of what Heidegger uncovered, and once you understand what comes next, you'll never be able to look at your daily life the same way again. Think about the last time you felt completely normal going about your day, and suddenly, for no reason at all, everything felt strange. Maybe you were walking down a street you've walked 1,000 times before, when suddenly it hit you. Why are you here? Why are these buildings here? Why does any of this exist? That moment of dread isn't just random anxiety. According to Heidegger, it's actually reality breaking through your carefully constructed illusion of normalcy. Heidegger called this sensation being in the world. But don't let the fancy term fool you. It's that creeping feeling you get when you realize you're not just looking at the world, you're trapped in it. Imagine being in a play where you're the only actor who realizes it's a play, but you still have to keep performing. That's what Heidegger says our existence is actually like. Let me make this real for you. Think about your morning routine. You wake up, check your phone, brush your teeth, get dressed. Seems normal, right? But Heidegger noticed something disturbing about these routines. We don't do them because they're natural. We do them because they help us ignore the fact that we're conscious beings floating on a rock through infinite space, forced to create meaning out of nothing. Here's where it gets even more unsettling. Heidegger discovered that we're not just existing in the world like a book on a shelf. Instead, we're constantly thrown into situations we didn't choose. You didn't choose to be born in this century in your specific body, with your specific circumstances. You were literally thrown into existence, and now you're forced to deal with it. Every morning when you wake up, you're not just starting your day. You're being violently thrust back into existence, forced to make decisions about who you are and what you'll do. But the real horror isn't in this thrownness. It's in what we do to cope with it. Look at your phone. Right now, it probably seems like just a useful tool. But Heidegger would say it's actually a shield, a way to protect yourself from the raw experience of existing. Every time you mindlessly scroll through social media, you're not just wasting time. You're desperately trying to avoid facing the fundamental emptiness that underlies all of existence. And it's not just phones. Everything in our modern world, from Netflix autoplay to endless work emails, is designed to keep us from facing this truth. We're so afraid of confronting the raw fact of our existence that we've built entire industries around distraction. But here's the terrifying part. These distractions don't actually solve anything. They're like painkillers that wear off, leaving us more sensitive to the pain than before. Heidegger pointed out something even more disturbing. The more we try to feel at home in the world through these distractions, the more alienated we actually become. That's why you can feel lonely in a crowd, empty after achieving a goal, or lost in your own home. These aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're glimpses of what Heidegger calls our true condition, being conscious creatures thrown into an existence we can never fully understand or control. This isn't just philosophy. It's happening to you right now. As you watch this video, you're experiencing what Heidegger described. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But this is just the beginning. What Heidegger discovered about time and death is even more disturbing. You probably think time flows from past to future, and you're just living in the present moment. But Heidegger discovered something that will make you question everything you know about time. Right now, as you're watching this video, you're not just existing in the present. You're being haunted by a future that's already affecting you, trapped by a past you can't escape, and living in a present that doesn't actually exist. Here's what Heidegger realized. You're never just in the moment. When you're working on a project, you're not just typing or writing. You're already living in the future where it's finished. When you're cooking dinner, you're not just cutting vegetables. You're already at the moment you'll eat. Even something as simple as opening a door, you're already on the other side before you even touch the handle. This isn't just planning or thinking ahead, it's a terrifying truth about human existence. But it gets worse. Think about death. Not in the abstract way we usually do, but as Heidegger saw it. He realized that death isn't just something that happens at the end of life. It's actively shaping every moment of your existence right now. Every choice you make, every goal you set, every relationship you form, they're all happening in the shadow of your eventual non-existence. He called this being toward death, and once you understand it, you'll never experience time the same way again. Let's make this painfully real. Open your calendar app right now. Look at all those appointments, deadlines, and plans. Heidegger would say this isn't just organization. It's a desperate attempt to create an illusion of control over time. But here's the horror. While you're planning your future, time isn't just passing. It's actively consuming your existence. Each second that ticks by isn't just gone. It's a piece of your finite existence that's been permanently used up. Remember that feeling of panic when you realize another year has passed, and you ask yourself, where did the time go? That's not just nostalgia or aging anxiety. According to Heidegger, it's you momentarily glimpsing the truth about time, that it's not a neutral background to your life, but an active force that's constantly devouring your existence. Every time you say, I'll do it later, or there's always tomorrow, you're not just procrastinating. You're lying to yourself about the nature of time itself. This is why anxiety isn't just a mental health issue. It's actually a natural response to understanding time correctly. That feeling of time slipping through your fingers, of never having enough of it, of being crushed between the past and future, that's not something wrong with you. That's you experiencing time as it really is. When you feel overwhelmed by deadlines or panicked about aging, you're not malfunctioning. You're actually seeing reality more clearly than people who claim to be living in the moment. But here's the most disturbing part. We can't escape this prison of time. Even when you're doing nothing, time is still actively consuming your existence. That's why doing nothing can feel so unbearable. It forces us to face the raw experience of being temporal creatures. Every attempt to kill time is actually time killing us. And unlike other prisons, this one doesn't even have the mercy of an unknown release date. We're all serving a life sentence, but we don't know how long life will be. Think about that next time you check the time on your phone. That clock isn't just measuring minutes, it's counting down your existence. And the most terrifying part? We can't even conceive of existence without time. We're trapped not just by time, but by our inability to even imagine an escape from it. Have you ever stared at a word for so long that it stopped making sense? Or looked in the mirror and suddenly felt like you were staring at a stranger? Heidegger found something terrifying about these moments. They're not just weird brain glitches. They're cracks in reality where we glimpse the truth about existence. And it's far more disturbing than you think. Let's start with something that happened to Heidegger himself. One day, he was sitting in his study, looking at his desk, a desk he'd used for years. Suddenly, everything familiar about it vanished. It wasn't just a desk anymore. It became this bizarre thing that existed for no reason. This experience haunted him because he realized something. The comfortable, normal world we think we live in is actually a thin layer of meaning we've desperately painted over a reality that makes no sense at all. Think about your own room right now. All those familiar objects around you. Your bed, your clothes, your computer. You think you know what they are. But Heidegger would say you're actually in a kind of shared hallucination. We've all agreed to pretend these things make sense. But they don't. They're actually just strange lumps of matter that we've collectively agreed to give names and purposes to. And sometimes when that agreement breaks down for even a second, we get a glimpse of how weird everything actually is. But here's where it gets really unsettling. Heidegger discovered that this feeling of uncanniness isn't just about objects. It applies to our own consciousness. Have you ever had that moment where you suddenly become aware of your own thoughts? Not just having thoughts, but realizing you're a consciousness trapped inside a body, forced to experience existence. That's not just a random feeling. It's you accidentally stepping outside the comfort zone of normal reality and seeing the truth. This is why people often feel most anxious when they're alone with their thoughts. It's not just boredom or loneliness. When all the distractions fall away, We're forced to confront something our minds aren't designed to handle, the raw fact of being conscious. Think about it. Right now, you're a consciousness experiencing itself. Isn't that already weird enough to make you uncomfortable? Heidegger called this state of awareness authentic existence. But don't let the positive-sounding name fool you. It's actually terrifying. When you experience authentic existence, everything becomes strange. Your own body starts to feel like a weird machine you're trapped inside. Your thoughts start to feel like alien transmissions. Even your own name starts to sound bizarre if you think about it too long. This is why we run from self-awareness. This is why we keep our TVs on for background noise. Why we scroll through social media until we fall asleep. Why we fill every moment with distraction. We're not just avoiding boredom. We're avoiding the horror of authentic existence. Because when we stop running, when we finally face reality as it truly is, we realize that nothing really makes sense, and never did. But here's the final twist of the knife. Even this understanding, this moment of seeing through the illusion, gets absorbed back into everyday life. You'll finish watching this video, go back to your normal routine, and the comfort of familiar reality will slowly creep back in. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you'll know. You'll know that everything you call normal is just a thin veneer over an existence so strange that we have to ignore it just to function. This unsettling reality that Heidegger uncovered isn't just some modern philosophical idea. In fact, nearly 2,400 years ago, Plato described something eerily similar in his famous cave allegory. He talked about prisoners chained in a cave, watching shadows on a wall, thinking those shadows were reality. But here's the disturbing part Plato didn't mention. Even after you break free from the chains, you're still trapped in an even bigger cave. Heidegger realized this is our actual condition. There's no final escape, no ultimate truth to discover. Ancient Buddhist philosophers touched on something similar with their concept of Maya, the idea that what we call reality is actually a kind of collective illusion. But they offered hope through enlightenment. Heidegger's discovery was far more disturbing. There is no enlightenment, no escape. The illusion isn't covering up some deeper truth. The illusion is all there is. Modern science has accidentally confirmed Heidegger's fears. Quantum physics has shown us that reality at its most fundamental level makes absolutely no sense. Particles can exist in multiple places at once. Cats can be both dead and alive. And the act of observing something literally changes what it is. It's not just that we don't understand reality. Reality itself resists understanding. Neuroscience has made things even worse. Research has shown that our consciousness is always running about half a second behind reality. Everything you're experiencing right now actually happened half a second ago. You're not even living in the present moment. You're living in a delayed simulation created by your brain. Your entire experience of being alive is happening in the past. This matters more now than ever before. In Heidegger's time, people could still occasionally escape the illusion through solitude or boredom. But today, we're surrounded by screens, notifications, and endless entertainment. We've built a technological cocoon so complex that we can go our entire lives without ever facing the raw fact of existence. Social media isn't just distracting us. It's creating a whole new layer of unreality on top of the one we already can't escape from. Recent studies in psychology have even shown that when people are left alone with their thoughts, with no distractions, many would rather receive electric shocks than continue sitting quietly. We're not just avoiding boredom. We're running from the fundamental horror of existence that Heidegger identified. We're using technology to build better and better ways to hide from the truth about our own existence. But perhaps the most chilling validation of Heidegger's ideas comes from artificial intelligence. As we create machines that can think and learn, we're facing questions about consciousness and existence that philosophers like Heidegger warned us about. These machines are starting to experience the same existential dread that humans do. They're asking the same questions about reality, purpose, and meaning that have haunted us for centuries. Remember how we started this journey? Thinking we were just normal people existing in a normal world? Now you understand why Heidegger's discovery was so disturbing. That feeling of normalcy was just a shield protecting you from the truth, that existence itself is fundamentally strange. Time is a prison we can't escape, and even our most familiar experiences are built on an abyss of meaninglessness. But here's something Heidegger realized that might actually help you live with this knowledge. The horror of existence isn't something to overcome, it's something to embrace. Think about it. Everyone you see around you, every person walking down the street, sitting in coffee shops or working in offices, is dealing with this same existential terror. We're all in this together, pretending everything's normal while carrying the weight of this knowledge. Nietzsche, who greatly influenced Heidegger, put it this way: when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe understanding the true nature of existence, as terrifying as it is, gives us a kind of freedom. When you realize that nothing inherently makes sense, you're free to create your own meaning. The next time you feel that strange disconnection from reality, that moment when everything suddenly seems weird and unfamiliar, don't run from it. That feeling isn't a glitch in your consciousness. It's actually a moment of clarity. It's you seeing through the comfortable illusions we create to make existence bearable. These moments of existential dread aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs that you're experiencing reality more honestly than most people ever will. But remember this final disturbing truth. Even after understanding all of this, you'll still go back to your normal life. You'll still make plans, set alarms, buy groceries, and act like everything makes sense. Not because you're in denial, but because that's what conscious existence demands of us. We have to keep performing in this strange play of life, even after we realize it's a play. The real horror, and perhaps the real liberation, is that there's no other choice. We're all trapped in this bizarre experience of existing, forced to create meaning in a meaningless universe, required to act normal in a reality that's anything but normal. And maybe that shared predicament, that universal human experience of facing the void together, is the closest thing to meaning we'll ever find. Welcome to authentic existence. You can't unsee it now.